Welcome back. You are still watching Winning Live. Now, this weekend we saw the Junior Boks winning and securing themselves the championship. They will be arriving home at around 10 a.m. this morning after beating New Zealand to win the World Rugby Under-20 Championship in Italy on Saturday night. Meanwhile, Banyana Banyana will be up against old foes Nigeria tomorrow at the Stade Larbi Zaouli in Casablanca for the semi-final clash at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations currently being played in Morocco. That match will kick off at 6 p.m. and will be shown live on SABC 3. To talk to us about these teams, we've roped in journalist, commentator and analyst Khanyiso Tshwaku. A very good morning to you, Khanyiso. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Vin. Good morning to the viewers.
Now, Khanyiso, we look at these two teams and how they've brought immense pride to South Africa. Let's start with the Junior Boks. What do you make of their showing against New Zealand for that victory, which was a solid one? And they say for them, it was just being solid defensively and the gees that got them over the line.
Look, I mean, theirs is a deserved accolade based on their preparation. I mean, Kevin Foot and the group have been together for around about 9 months. They've put together structures, they've put together plans. And outside of that little stumble in the Junior Rugby Championships where they couldn't just get over the line, they saved their best for last. One of the things that Kevin actually mentioned in Saturday's post-match press conference was the fact that they tightened up their defense, and their defense was probably one of the key things that got them through the tournament. Yes, they did have a few defensive stumbles when they played England, for example, but in the final when it truly mattered, especially when New Zealand saw a lot of possession, they were able to keep the ball, to keep New Zealand at bay. One would have been slightly worried about the amount of scoring chances that they left to begging, but the fact remained that they got to the final and they did what was expected of them in the final, considering how well they played in the pool stages and in the semi-final. So it was a deserved accolade, and I think the hard work that they put in as a player group, as a coaching group, paid off significantly.
And I mean, when you look at these players, and you mentioned some of them, you look at the fly half in Vusi Moyo, you look at the size of those loose forwards, and you look at OReilly Norton. Certainly this looks like this is the golden generation when it comes to these youngsters and how they will probably fit perfectly into the senior team when the time comes.
Look, I think that becomes the important part now. How do these players become integrated into the senior system? You look at a player like OReilly Norton, for example. He still has another year of under-20 rugby to come because he's still only 19, matriculated last year from Paul Roos. Then Vusi Moyo becomes an important factor because even at the Lions are also going through a bit of a transitional phase. So, and you look at even some German mentor. So you look at one needs to look at the provinces, where the provinces are from a developmental perspective and how those particular players need to fit in. Like Olanyale, for example, was absolutely magnificent even for UCT, who won the Varsity Cup earlier this year. So already a lot of those players are actually key players for their respective teams and unions at age group level. So I think with the Currie Cup starting this Friday, I think what becomes important is to see how those players then become phased in for senior rugby. Like someone like Batu Khekani played a critical role for the Sharks last year in the Currie Cup. So it becomes important to see where those players now start to fit in for their provinces.
And I mean, you speak about OReilly, and I just want to touch on him. I mean, we've seen him play for South Africa's under-19 cricket team, and you have the likes of your Herschel Gibbs and your AB de Villiers, who chose cricket over rugby. What do you see happening for OReilly in terms of that cricket versus rugby?
Look, he's already made his decision. I mean, he actually made it very clear in his press conference that he does not regret choosing rugby over cricket. Yes, he's a player of some ability. I remember actually watching him throughout the 2024 and the 19 World Cup as a very, very good all-rounder with a fast medium pace, with a left-handed batter who contributed important runs. That was also South Africa's second highest wicket taker in that World Cup behind Kwenama Parker. So clearly, as a cricketer and the sportsman, is very talented. But look, I mean, he's made it very clear where it is rugby in where he belongs, and he's also got another year in him in under-20 rugby to prove that he's probably to prove that he's got an even higher ceiling for his potential. The only challenge for him is that he plays in a position that's got a lot of competition. That number 4 lock is not a place where competition is actually very, very easy. I mean, if you look at the current incumbent, if in the Boks Elizabeth, and you look at the amount of time he's had in that saddle, and you look at the amount of competition, I mean, he has in that position, means that after under-20, actually that's where his bigger bout of hard work starts. He'll be the title defense next year, but I think it's going to be important to see how it goes next year. I mean, and how that sets out to stall for rugby post the age of 21.
And I want to move now into Banyana Banyana. We look at them coming into the semi-final tomorrow evening against Nigeria, and you look at the two teams and how they've performed so far in the tournament. What do you make of tomorrow's semi-final? Particularly, I mean, we saw a Hilda Magaya looking like she was limping for that celebration at the end. Amukhelang Mutawu being sent off. So some injury concerns as well for Coach Desiree Ellis. How do you see that semi-final playing out?
It's going to be a difficult game for Banyana Banyana. Their performance was inexplicably anemic for the better part of the game. I was just shocked at how they came to life in the second half extra time and actually tried to win the game from there. Whereas there was an ample opportunity for them to dominate the game from start to finish. As much as Senegal competitive, it wasn't a Senegal team that should have taken the game to penalties. It was a game that Banyana should have won in regulation time. So they're going to need to be far more incisive in the final third. Also be wary of Nigeria's use of the long ball and the set pieces, because if you look at how Nigeria use the long ball and the set pieces, absolutely take apart Zambia. It was very, very, very scary for Banyana, because Zambia has been a team that has given Banyana a fair few headaches in the past 2 to 3 years, and it's very clear to see how Nigeria have actually bounced back. As a soccer nation, looking how well they performed. I mean, the World Cup, looking at how they and the Olympic qualification route. So look, I think for Banyana, one, they just need to be a bit more sharp in defense, a bit more enterprising, a bit more clinical on attack as compared to what they were on Saturday.
Oh, Khanyiso, thank you so much. Always a pleasure chatting to you. Khanyiso Tshwaku, just speaking on the Junior Boks. Of course, they are now world champions, as well as Banyana Banyana, who play in the semi-final against Nigeria tomorrow night live on SABC 3. That's where we'll leave it for now. Let's take you to the main news desk for your headlines.